Just now saw my guest here pop up on the screen. So, folks, this is Jeannie Paul. She's the author of this book I have in my hand right here. Yes, Jeannie, you see me backstage. I did order your book. Now, I just got it in because I ordered it over the holidays. It took a while. I got it from Amazon. This is called The Yankee Princess, why Dad and I were in a league of our own. And like I said before to you all, that's Gabe Paul, famous general manager, owner in the Major League Baseball here. So former, of course. Let's bring up Jeannie and have a round of applause. Hey, Jeannie, I appreciate you coming on the program tonight, my friend.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you good. That seems like you've got everything down. You was right on the dot. I can tell you've worked in radio. I said 7:30, 8:30 Eastern, and I was thinking, okay, it's 7:29. And I looked at 7:30 and looked up here on the screen. So appreciate you.
Well, if I knew I was going to be on TV, I thought it was just an audio. I would have put a lot more makeup on. But
oh,
that's
no,
okay.
You look great.
Oh, natural.
You look great here. Well, TV, internet, I guess you could say it's on TV. It's on YouTube. Live stream show here. I want to tell the crowd, I picked up Jeannie. Was that your daughter with you?
That was my soon-to-be daughter-in-law. My son's getting married in Finland in February. And
congratulations.
Thank you. One trip to Nashville to see a concert, and we had a really great weekend.
Oh, so you were doing mother-in-law, daughter-in-law bonding.
Right, that's right. Yes, it was. And it's a funny story, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Well, it seems like you're getting off to a good start. Sound like you really like each other.
Well, I do. I actually really like my soon-to-be daughter-in-law. That's a plus, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Now I saw now. Are you remarried also?
No, no, I'm not remarried.
I saw Jenny Gardner on my email, and then Jenny.
Well, Paul. That's my married name that I kept because my children have Gardner, but I go by Paul because that's my name I write under.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of things that I write.
Yeah. Yeah. I had to get to my questions here. So on reading through your book and listening to an interview, Gabe Paul, your dad, was he and now you've got a background, you were telling me in the car the other day, you've got a background in sports talk career. You've been to sports talk radio. I've also looked up, you're a motivational speaker. You're really into sports. Was that, now your dad's famous former general manager of the New York Yankees, also owner. Was that because of his influence? What comes your love for sports to want to have a career in it?
Well, I mean, you can go into the psychological reasons of why people do what they do. It's sort of natural. I mean, if you went into a study of why people do what they do, how many people end up doing what their parents do? But in my case, I had 4 brothers.
Okay.
And
yeah, Dad, you're the only daughter.
I'm the only girl. And Dad always said to the boys, don't ever go into baseball. Well, my oldest brother, Gabe Jr., was with the Milwaukee Brewers for 30 years as vice president of stadium operations. Yeah. I have a baby brother who started the Tampa Bay Lightning. And then in between, all the boys dabbled in sports. So I guess it was natural for me to go into broadcasting and become a sportscaster at the age of 19. And my first job was at the Washington Post under the supervision of Shirley Povich, who is Maury Povich's dad, or was Maury Povich's dad. Maury Povich, the television.
Yeah, Maury Povich, yeah.
Maury Povich. What happened to Maury Povich?
Yeah.
But anyway, he was a sportscaster, an extraordinary sportscaster until he got into the kooky stuff. Mm-hmm. But Shirley Povich brought me on to the Washington Post as a copy girl, and that was my first introduction to writing and the sports world. And from there,
Yeah.
I moved along, and I ended up in television in New York when Dad was owner of the New York Yankees. And that's where the book came from, because it was a book
Yeah.
about a father-daughter relationship and a big conflict of interest.
Yes,
Because
yes. Yeah, let me ask you about this. Now, I found some interview. I think I want to say this interview was on your website. This is probably when this first came out. Now, you wrote this when? It was published in 2011, right?
right,
But
right.
you wrote this, what, 2010, 2009?
It took me 12 years to write.
Wow. Okay. Hey, listen, better late than never, But anyways, I want to ask you this question because I was just talking about Bill Belichick. I really don't like what I'm hearing and reading, that he is going to take he's going to take this job with the Carolina Tar Heels. And its reports are when he leaves, part of his deal is his son's going to take over, and little nepotism. And you said your dad was totally against that and wouldn't even give you an interview. Can you explain that?
Well, yes, I can
Love that,
explain
if
it.
that's
And
the
I
truth.
get this question all the time
Yeah.
about nepotism, because the Steinbrenners are totally different.
Yes.
There was okay. So Dad said that if we were going to make our way in the world, that he is not going to give us a job in the same place that he works. And he was part owner of 4 Major League Baseball teams.
Yeah.
So we had to make our own way. And the question I get is, didn't that make me mad? And as a 20-year-old, I maybe it did a little bit, but
Yeah.
on the other hand, in this stage of my life, it was the biggest blessing around, because honestly, if you don't make your own way in life, you don't appreciate the things that you have.
Yes.
And
Amen.
right, isn't that true?
Yes.
Right. So basically, I worked hard working my way up from a copy girl all the way up to a network reporter. And
Right.
it was not easy in the 70s. Believe me, it was not easy. I was the first woman at the Washington Post. I was the first woman on NBC Sports. I was the first woman everywhere. I was kicked out of high school press boxes. I paid my dues. I wrote bowling. I wrote high school sports. I paid my dues.
Yeah.
And I wasn't paid a lot of money, and I never had a lot of money. And Dad never really had a lot of money either, because he was a bat boy at the age of 10 years old. He worked his way up from traveling secretary to general manager to president. And people don't understand that not everybody owned pizza parlors, and not everybody
Right.
owned something else. And baseball was his only career. And he didn't have a lot of money to back up what he was doing. And he also had 5 kids, and if that will
Yeah.
not drain you, I don't know what will.
Now,
Right.
you said that he would not, if I understand it right from this other interview you did years ago, like I said, it was probably 2010, I think,
Right.
radio interview, that he wouldn't grant you an interview with him or Catfish
No,
Hunter.
what happened was, it was when Catfish Hunter was signed,
Okay.
and I was working for CBS, and they
Okay.
wanted me to go down to Texas, Cotton Bowl or something like that, and take him with me and do the interview of how he signed Catfish Hunter, and he would not go with me. And at that point, I was a producer, and that was going to be my big break to go on network television.
Yeah.
And during, I think it was the Cotton Bowl or something like that, but it was a big show.
Okay.
And Dad said, no, they're just using you, and I'm not
Wow.
going to do it. And that I was upset about, because I said, okay, so they're using me. Let's do it anyway. And let's tell the story, and let me do the interview, and, push me up the ladder a little bit. And he said no.
That's awesome. What I was LeBron. His son is now Bronny's with the Lakers, and you can hear the criticisms. And that's what I said. Just let him learn on his own.
That's
what he
what he
fought
did
for it.
not want me. That's exactly what he said. I don't want people to criticize you for being my daughter because you got there because of me. You get where you're going because of you. And the Steinbrenners all got jobs in the Yankee organization. By the way,
Yeah.
Dad put George Steinbrenner in that organization. It was not the other way around, and
Yes.
he almost did not. But he did not want anybody in our family being criticized because of something he did or putting us in a position of failure. We were just going to earn our own way on our own merits. And if we got fired, we got fired on our own merits.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Now, I read now that Steinbrenner, your dad, Steinbrenner was wanting to buy the Indians, and your dad was an executive at the Indians, and he's the one that made the deal happen. That the Indians thing fell through for the Yankees with this company. What did your dad see in Steinbrenner to even want to deal with him at that time?
Well, no, well, you have to understand that he was friends with George in Cleveland.
Okay.
And they were just friends. Now, what happened with the Indians was Vernon Stouffer had ownership in the Indians at that time.
Okay.
And George and Vernon Stouffer's son went to Williams College together.
Okay.
And they owned the Cleveland Pipers, I think it was at that time. And George went into Stouffer's son's checkbook and forged a check.
Wow.
With his son and forged a check in his son's checkbook to pay something with the Pipers payroll or something.
Mm-hmm.
And Vernon found out about it. I believe that's what it was. And so therefore he would never sell him an interest in the Cleveland Indians. And so he never told George that, but yeah. George was never going to be allowed to buy an interest in the Cleveland Indians because of that. And
because of a bad check or attempted.
Because of a check that he stole from his son's checkbook.
Wow. Now, was it really trying to do a crime, or was he just using his son's checkbook? They had shared accounts or something?
No, they did not have shared accounts.
Oh, okay.
No.
I didn't know. I mean, you never know. Okay.
No, they did not have shared accounts. And so that was always something that was held against him. And then I think he wanted to go to Detroit and buy the Tigers.
Okay.
But Major League Baseball vets you. They have a vetting system, and all the owners have to agree to let you into Major League Baseball.
Okay.
And he had no history in Major League Baseball. And there were reports that I saw.
Okay.
And he was the weak link in the Yankees. And they almost did not let him in.
Yeah, so your dad hooked him up with this company. How long had they been friends? Did they meet in college or something? Your dad?
No. My dad only went through the 8th grade.
Okay.
They
baseball circles or what?
They met in Cleveland.
This somewhere in Cleveland, a bar or something, or what happened?
No. No. It was probably at an Indians game or something. Dad was in Cleveland for quite a while, and they met there somewhere.
Okay, that is an interesting story. Now you're saying that your dad made it happen for the Yankees. We're talking January '73. They should make a movie about this. People my age, we just know the Yankees from the '90s,
Well, that's why I wrote the book. I actually wrote the book to be a movie, and there are parts in there that would have been.
It should be, even though it's got some years on it. It should be. This is great. Look, the Yankees are still coming.
It should be a movie because it's also a father-daughter love story.
Yeah.
Surrounded by the New York Yankees. And it's a universal story about fathers and daughters. And not very many people talk about the residual effects of a workaholic dad.
Okay. That's what it sounds like with him. Yeah. I really admire your dad. I don't even know him.
Well, he was a great guy. But we butted heads. Can you imagine? We butted heads. I'm in New York
Sounds like you're just alike, huh?
Yes. And he has a daughter in the industry covering the New York Yankees when he's part owner. And if that isn't a conflict of interest, I don't know what is.
Yes. So, so we get to that part. How did he come up with the money to buy the Yankees? I mean, that's how much did the Yankees did he actually own? That's an interesting
Oh
aspect
gosh,
of the story.
I think he owned. Well, let's see. I'd have to go back and look at all my notes and everything like
Like
that, but
5% or something.
like 5% or something like
Okay.
that. And he had a very good friend who probably lent him the money.
Okay.
And that good friend was also from Cleveland. And he made a deal with that friend
Yeah.
that after so many years, he would go back to Cleveland, which he did, and try to build a winner for the Indians. So he stayed 5 years and went back to Cleveland, and that's where he retired in 1984. But unfortunately, there just wasn't enough money in the Cleveland organization to build a winner, because by that time free agency had come in, and you really needed a lot of money
Yeah.
to buy players. And Cleveland was an interesting situation. They just didn't have the money to buy the players and trade. And Dad was a master at trading, but unless you had that money behind you, you just it couldn't be done.
Okay. So they win the World Series in '77. Did Steinbrenner try to keep your dad there and talk him out of this?
Yes,
Okay.
he tried. He tried to do all sorts of stuff to keep him there. And when Dad said no, he couldn't be bought,
Yeah.
Steinbrenner said that his name was never to be mentioned again in Yankee Stadium.
Wow. That's typical Steinbrenner. You know, I
Yeah.
thought that he had left because, by the way, for the audience there, 160. Okay, so he bought, going back to this purchase here, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Looking at today's numbers, you're talking billions and billions and billions of dollars for organizations, $4 billion, $5 billion. He bought the Yankees in '73 for $10 billion and $167,000 out of his own pocket. That sounds so crazy. It's the deal of a lifetime, considering the fact that CBS bought it for $12 million in what, 64 or 11.2 million in 64. That's crazy. It's one of the
$10
greatest deals of all
million,
time.
$10 million, and I think it was 253,000 or something. But
Yeah.
here's an interesting fact, that George had a clause in the contract, and I don't know how this got through Dad's lawyers, that he could buy back stock at the original price that the original owners had, borrowing from Yankee money when they sold. So the way that George became the majority owner was to make everybody angry,
Yeah.
so that they would sell. Then he could buy back their stock at the original price that they paid for it,
Okay.
borrowing from Yankee money.
Wow. How do you pull that off? You can't probably do that now all of a
I
sudden.
have no idea how
Yeah.
that got through. I have no idea. And to this day, I have no idea how that got through
So
Dad's
that's how your
lawyers.
dad got, he just gave your dad that money back and said, you take it at this price.
Dad, when he sold his stock, did
Yeah.
not make a penny on it.
Dang.
Not a penny. And neither did anybody else. And for an example, he had a very good friend who was the ambassador to Switzerland,
Okay.
Marvin Warner.
Okay.
And Marvin Warner was in New York, and George said, "Hey, come and visit me at Le Club," or whatever this club was. Le Club,
Yeah.
I think it was called. And he
Okay.
walks in, and the maitre d's name was Michael. Michael had a big fat Yankee ring on his finger. And George was sitting over there at a table with a bunch of people, and he goes, "I'm here to see George." And he sees George, and he waves to George, and Michael says, "Oh, I'm sorry, you can't go over there." And he goes, "Well, wait a minute." He goes, "I'm a guest of George Steinbrenner." And he goes, "Well, I'm sorry, you can't go over there." That's the type of thing. That's the type of thing that went on. So Marvin went home and sold his stock.
Wow.
He was so angry. He went home and sold. Now, they're all dead. All these people are dead.
Yeah.
And so he goes home and he sells the stock for the original price that he sold. He did not make any money on it. And
wow.
George kept acquiring more and more stock, borrowing from Yankee money, buying it back at the original amount because that was in the deal. And that's how he became majority owner.
Yeah. Yeah. And
so you see what I'm saying
is
that because he only put originally $200,000 into the team.
Yeah. See, I've got this from Google, which also it does list MLB.com. It says 160, but still that's not a, even if it's 200. You're saying this says 168 of his own money. 100,000. That's crazy. Little bit of cash. I'm surprised Major League Baseball even done the deal or let the deal happen with CBS.
Well, CBS was had to sell.
Well, they in dire straits.
They had to sell, right?
Yeah.
And it's not called the Bronx Zoo for nothing. It was a zoo. It was a total zoo. And I was young, I was in my 20s.
In 73 when this happened?
Yeah, I was in my 20s.
Right at the anniversary, Jenny.
What's that?
Today's January 8th.
Oh, geez. Oh, gosh.
That's what it says here, January 3rd, 1973.
Right.
January 8th, 2025,
Yeah.
52 years ago.
I was in Middleburg, Virginia.
Okay.
Driving around, looking at horses because I love the countryside. I was in college. And Mom and Dad called me and said, your father's going to the Yankees. I almost flipped out. And I was like, what? Because I never expected that. And, but it was kind of interesting because Cleveland was in dire straits and Dad had a very difficult time in Cleveland. And the Cleveland fans are very fickle. They'll go to a game if they're winning, and if they're losing, it seems like they don't show up. And that's still true to this day in a way. And I know it's kind of weird.
First, I'm glad the Cavs are doing well. They won with LeBron.
and then the Browns move away, and oh my gosh, it's an interesting city. But so I was like, and then I told you, and I say in the book, my life was never the same. But your life is never the same, from year to year anyway. But my life was really never the same when we went to New York. But it was a very interesting time, and I'm so happy to have had that in my past.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to have every year in my past in my life because every year was different. The best time was last year. When Dad got inducted into the Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame. That was spectacular.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I want to say that, wasn't Pete Rose there? I think I seen something on Pete Rose, and I think I heard him mention Gabe Paul. There was a documentary on Pete Rose that came out just before he died. Did you see that?
No, but Dad signed Pete Rose many, many years ago. I grew up knowing Pete. And last year we sat together at the inauguration, and it was great. It was just great, and all the people in the Hall of Fame. Dad signed 69% of the Big Red Machine, and he had been gone from Cincinnati 8 years before the Big Red Machine really took off. But and I say the Gabe Paul in Cincinnati was no different than the Gabe Paul in New York. He believed in a strong farm system, and he made over 500 trades in his lifetime. Ooh. And he was a master trader. And, he had an 8th grade education. He was a 10-year-old boy. He used to sneak in the ballpark. There were 12 kids in his family. His parents were from the Ukraine.
Yeah.
And he was Jewish. And my mother was Episcopal, but he was Jewish, and he did not want to call attention to that. He could have been commissioner, but because he was Jewish, he sort of turned it down. And he was an amazing guy. And he was an amazing man, and I gave him fits. I know, I ran him in circles.
Now, I've read this now. I wouldn't bring this up if it wasn't air quote in the book.
What?
I read this the other day through here. I was reading it in the Ford. I'm about 20 pages in this thing.
Uh-oh.
And this is what it says in the book.
Uh-oh.
You had a secret affair, direct quote,
Uh-oh.
with Billy Martin. How did that come about? I mean,
well, listen.
Yeah.
I'm in my 20s.
Yeah.
And what 20-year-old would not hang out with Billy Martin and Mickey Mantle?
Yeah.
And we go out and, it was such a fun time.
How old was Billy Martin at the time? We're talking about
much
73?
older than I was. Much older than I was.
Okay.
Much older.
You're saying like 40 something, maybe 43, 44?
Well, I'd have to think about it, but he was much older than I was.
Yeah.
But
well,
I mean,
I'll say that.
we're going out. We're going out. We're sitting at PJ Clark's, which was a sports bar in New York.
Yeah.
I'm a reporter, and we were at the same events all the time, spring training, and so there we go. I mean,
when did you come to the point where oh my God, it's Billy Martin. Let me interview Billy Martin, to the fact that, I'd kind of like to go out with Billy Martin. When did they cross over from that?
It never crossed over like that. Billy Martin was a woman.
How did that cross over? People love this stuff, Jenny.
Listen, I know, but Billy Martin was a womanizer, okay?
Okay.
I was just one of his on his list.
Okay. Yeah. So you're saying it never crossed over like that? You didn't try to come at him professionally and interview him?
Oh, I interviewed him. I interviewed him a lot, but
okay.
But as far as going out with Billy, I'm saying that Billy would probably go out with a lot of people, and I would have never married him.
So you're not going to say, do you actually remember the time when you thought, man, I kind of like to, or you can't really put all that together? Was it kind of a blur to you? Everything was happening fast, or what?
There was a lot of drinking, and it's not a blur, and I know exactly what happened. And I was very fond of Billy, and Billy was very smart, but he was an alcoholic.
Yeah. Well, grew up around both of them. I understand. Older men, younger women. That's pretty common now. Bill Belichick was just talking. He's the man on the camera, right? He's dating a 24-year-old. He's in his 70s now. I know that's a bigger difference there. But you've got guys like Al Pacino with young kids, and he's in his 80s.
Well, let's put it this way: if there's a movie made, I'll say a little bit more.
Yeah, that would be really cool there. Yeah,
because people love the dirt. Dad never wrote a book because he said you have to put so much dirt in there. He had plenty of it, but he wasn't going to write it.
Was he married at the time, or is he not married?
Not married. Billy? Not married. No.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. And I've known about him getting fired 4 times, and everybody knew about the alcohol issues, but he's a good manager.
5 times.
He got fired 5 times?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wonder why George kept bringing him back.
Well, George should have been fired 5 times.
Yeah. Did you talk to the Steinbrenners? Did you forgive them, or how'd that go about later on?
Well, first of all, the Steinbrenners were lovely people. Jenny and Jesse and Hal and Hank all were lovely, lovely people. And George's wife was lovely. It was George that was the problem.
Okay.
And that they came to my wedding. George didn't because he wasn't there, but they were all very, very, very lovely, lovely, lovely people. And it was George.
Yeah. Reading about your dad and George, it reminds me of Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones, because they didn't win in the 80s. It took him a while to recover from your dad leaving. Remember, they didn't do anything in the 80s. Don't you see that's kind of a similarity?
After Dad left, it was 15 years after Dad left before they won again. And, it kind of it's well, I mean, you don't wish ill on anybody,
Right.
but it
Right.
was 15 years.
Yeah.
And if they had had dad there, maybe they would have won. But that's hindsight. And hindsight, what do they say, is
Hindsight's
20 20
2020.
20.
Yeah.
And it they may have won. But dad couldn't take it anymore. He did make a deal to go back to Cleveland. But it
Okay.
was so nasty at the end with
Right.
saying, well, like I said, his name wasn't to be mentioned. He made George Steinbrenner who he was. George
Mm,
Steinbrenner, you could say George made himself, but
yeah.
that's not true. Dad did the trades. Dad, was the baseball man, and
Yeah.
dad taught George everything he knew in baseball.
Yeah. It's
And
kind of like
that's,
Ray Kroc and the McDonald brothers, where he
well,
kind of just took the McDonald thing and just kind of ran with it and did something else with it. But really, the McDonald brothers kind of put together McDonald's, the story of
right,
McDonald's. Yeah.
right.
Very similar story there. So what are you doing now? Are you still in the sports talk industry? Are you still motivational speaker? What are you doing
I
nowadays?
do a little bit of everything. I mean, sometimes I'll go on with Fred Wallen on Sports Overnight America,
Okay.
and I'm writing another book, and hopefully the Yankee Princess will become a movie.
You
I'd
still
love for
pushing for
someone.
that?
What's that?
You still pushing that and get it to be
Yes. I mean, because it's a great father-daughter universal
yeah.
story. And actually the Bronx Zoo, what did they do? What was that series? Oh, The Bronx is Burning.
Okay.
That only touched on a little bit of the story, and it had high ratings, and it was a great series and everything like that. But this is a totally different universal father-daughter
Yeah.
story, and there are no father-daughter stories like this in
Right.
baseball.
Yeah. Yeah. And parenting has been, I think it was Tony Dungy said something about that. It's been like an all-time low. We need to honor more two-parent homes and daughter father relationships and father son relationships, and emphasize on staying married to one lady, because the statistics with the crime with the sons, if they don't have dad around, and dad's that's a big deal, you
A
know.
father and a daughter. I mean, your father is the first man you see. You
Yeah,
emulate him. Um, I married a very controlling man. I was
like your
married
dad.
twice. Yes, my dad was very controlling, and I write
Yeah,
about that. Um, and but he was a wonderful man,
yeah,
but he just wanted the best for me. And the other thing is, in that generation, it was like, oh, get married and have kids and you'll be fine. Well, that's
yeah.
not really the situation, because you're really not fine.
Right.
And so they're antagonists, they're protagonists. It would be a great TV series, it would be a great TV movie, but Hollywood is kind of corrupt, and so I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well,
I don't know
I
how to
think
get.
Hollywood's they're out of ideas. They're doing remakes constantly, Jenny, and a book about this would be also, or a story about this, or even just your story in general would be
Well,
good.
the home box office liked it, but they were busy at the time. And I did talk to
And I love HBO. I was just talking about
I did
Sopranos
talk
before
to
you got on.
Len Amato, and he did Blood Diamond, and he liked it,
Yeah.
but he was really busy at the time, and so I never really pushed it with home box office. But any one of the Prime or Netflix or anything, it'd be a great series.
Yeah. Well, I read all the time about, well, I wrote this book back in so and so, and it took 12 years to get it off the ground. Or
Oh,
I think
right.
Rudy took 10 years to get, after he started that, 10 years to get that. And you know how hard it was for Rudy. So, like you said, I'm glad that you just got it published, that you're still playing the long game. And I was telling a friend of mine, after I talked to you, I said, Corey, I was really hesitant to tell this woman that I've been doing this for 7 years. because I thought she may think, well, this guy's not successful. He's out here driving Uber and stuff. But, I
Nah.
mentioned to you long game, and like it's like you respected that. Like I stayed with it, for 7 years. And it was a totally opposite reaction that I thought you would have for me. So I really appreciate that. But now after looking at this and talking to you, reading about, I can understand that the nepotism stuff. You understand process, long game, developing, starting from the ground up.
That's right. And I do understand everything, and it took me a long time to understand what Dad's values and ethics and morals.
Yeah.
And and I hope I brought up my two children the same way. Where they work hard and they don't accept freebies, and
Right.
they earn what they get, and I'm a big believer in that. So it did have a big effect on me, and it took me a long time to learn, but I learned it.
Yeah. Well, like mine's here, and I've got your book and where to get it. At the bottom of the screen, theyankeeprincess.com, Amazon. Now, I ordered mine from Amazon. It took a few weeks, so I ordered it during the holidays. Remember, I picked you up on a couple days before Christmas.
Right.
So, anything else do you need to plug, Jeannie?
No, thank you so much. And I envy you living in Nashville, because that's my favorite city.
Oh, we're supposed to get a lot of snow here lately. Are you still in Fort Lauderdale? Or are you down?
No, I'm in Richmond, Virginia.
You're in Richmond. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Richmond. I have a daughter here, and then have a son in Annapolis, Maryland.
Okay.
And that's the one who's getting married in Finland in February.
Oh,
I know. We're all going over there.
Is she from Finland?
No, she's not. But they wanted to get married under the Northern Lights.
Oh.
So we're all going to freeze our butts off under the Northern Lights, but maybe the pictures will be good.
If it makes her happy, I guess, happy wife, happy life, right?
Well, you met her. She's lovely. She's just a lovely person.
She seems really humble. Yeah.
She's lovely.
She don't seem demanding at all.
No, she's very sweet, and they really are a great match.
That's the best news I've heard all day. All right. Hey, Jen, you know what? I may ask you to come back on. We're way over the time. I normally just keep this within an hour. But when I get done reading this, would you like to come back on sometime?
Absolutely. And just let me know. It'd be a pleasure. Yeah.
And, a friend of mine, Keith Engel, he's a big baseball guy. And I was going to get into some baseball questions, but we got distracted with other stuff. He said he would like to interview you. He's got me set up with learning how to use a green screen. He's very professional. Oh. Could I recommend him to you?
Did you? I don't know.
No, could I? I'm just saying. Would it
sure. Yeah, sure thing.
He'd order your book and stuff. Keith's a great guy. He does a show like mine, live stream, and older guy. He's huge in the base. I just got back into baseball. I thought it was a little slow for a while. I like this. I like the pitch clock. I don't know how you feel about that, but
we can talk about that another time.
Yeah, I'm just saying we love that. Us younger folks that are caffeinated and stuff, 2 hours and 29 minutes. Wow. We're all into that.
I've been to plenty of double headers, and I've been to more baseball games than anybody probably, besides my dad.
Yeah, you're okay with staying 8 hours to a baseball game?
Oh, well, not really, but then again, we'll talk about that another day.
You got it. Okay. Jeannie Paul, everybody. Hold on, let me give you a good sound off here.